Yo guys, what's up? Ben Ababi here and welcome back to the YouTube channel. So for those of you who didn't see the first installment of the Weasel Sweat, definitely go check that out before watching today's episode, which is the second part. Mark is going to be playing a few tables of 1KNL, talking about his thoughts, and I will be kind of sharing my 2 cents here and there. If you guys do enjoy this type of content, please do go ahead and drop me a sub, and I'll catch you at the end of the video.
I'm going to call this if it's going to be a thing. I've rolled particularly low. I'll take that board here. I think this might be indifferent. I'm not 100% sure. I am going to fold this time. Here, I think just call in versus half pot. These are the kind of spots as well where, well, I think I think I have an easy fold here with this hand, but it's whether or not I bluff this type of hand versus check. I always go into, like, you know, showdown. Like, I have showdown. Maybe it doesn't bluff. And then here, I think I just fold.
Yep, well played. 10-8, I agree. I don't want to be calling that versus big 3-bet on the button. I think he's probably actually losing. I don't even think it's indifferent in the 1K rake. And then the ace-king, I think on this specific board, when they check the turn, I don't think you want to start bluffing ace-king in this exact spot. I think if it's like a little bit earlier in position, like you're under the gun versus big blind and the board's a little bit different, it's like a jack high, a jack 9, 3, 5, then that's a spot where you can start bluffing your ace king. I mean, yeah, this is the age-old thing. I think that you probably, if you were a little bit more rigid with yourself around sizing schemes, which I think is important to be, at least when you're learning and making sure your sizing schemes are consistent, then, like, once you've learned that a bit more in more detail, then you have a bit more freedom to kind of change your sizes on the river.
Okay.
I'll come to that again in a second.
Here, I'm going to check back. I don't think it's necessarily, like, as bad. Yeah, he's good. Like, we're going to have... I think in these positions, Queen 10 suited folds a lot in his shoes. So I don't think that... I think we still have a big advantage. We're going to have 8s and 9s pretty often. I don't tend to flat cut off too often as well, especially on reggy tables. So I'll just, like, 3-bet or fold. Tourney bet goes small. I think we have an easy call. And then river potentially going to be in a spot. This guy shoved 30 bigs down here. I'm going to call just against a wreck. And be flipping. Doesn't really matter about the outcome. And then here versus overbet, I think bluffs are going to come from something like 7s with a spade, 6s with a spade. This guy is particularly aggressive. Yeah, I think I'm kind of like... here I'm folding against a lot of the population, but against this opponent specifically, I think I'm going to consider calling. Maybe just... because I don't know how often I have a spade in my hand here. I'm just going to roll and call, like... I don't know how often I want to call here. I don't know.
Really, 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 really tough spot. I think versus that player and, like, maybe the image that they perceive you to have based on, like, what we played so far, I think that they're very likely to try and overbluff you in this spot. So I probably would pure call your combo, but it is so unthrilling, it's not even true. So I don't mind folding, but I do think calling is the right play.
Yeah, I don't really know why I folded. I think just closing my eyes and calling is good there.
Yeah, I think maybe you relied on the RNG there to kind of like make the decision for you, but I think you kind of knew that calling was probably best.
So, like,
it might be shit though.
In these spots, you know, I really don't know. I'm gonna sort of do this in the way of, like, I think when I'm gonna have bets, I don't mind having small bets and being kind of depolarized, and then having this kind of hand as, you know, just to make sure that we have some really good hands. And then I don't know if, like, I'm not sure if I want to polarize the river on this type of board or not.
Very interesting hand. So they bet small on the flop, is that right?
No, check flop. I bet small.
You bet small on the flop, or you bet small on the turn?
Both.
You bet small on flop and turn. Okay, sure. Okay, so I think small on the flop is okay. I think this is different to the ace high board where maybe you want to be going bigger. I think small is better because you clearly do have, like, a bunch of, like, king X and other combos that do want to bet small. Turn, it's, like, completely based on how you want to approach the spot. I personally think that in a blind v blind battle here, I want to build more around, like, the top end because I have so many, like, suited, like, 8 gappers, for example, and I've just got loads and loads of flushes that out of position doesn't have. I even have like the nut flush region as well. I'm much more inclined to build around the bulk of like my high end value than I am in a spot where like I want to build around like a bunch of second pairs. Not a spot you want to build around like 8-7 offsuit no club, for example, right? And I don't see a great amount of merit in them building around king deuce of hearts. So for that reason, if I'm not like building around like a wealth of my offsuit combos, then I may as well build around like the top end value, which is going to be like 2 pair and set plus.
Yeah.
So I think you probably want to just go ahead with an overbet approach on the turn, and 100% when you go small on the turn, which now you've told me and as demonstrated in the hand is uncapped, you really, really, really need to be having a split sizing approach on the river, which is like B70 and then like an overbet as well. Because you need to recapture that money that you haven't put in on the turn by capping yourself to one size. I'm glad that you did use one size on the turn and then you used like a modest size on the river, because that shows like the sincerity that like are doing that with your entire range, because it's quite unintuitive to do it with a flush, right? It's quite intuitive to go, I've got a flush, I'm going to go big. So I'm pleased that you were sincerely using the sizing scheme that you used, but I do think it kind of like cost yourself your range money in that spot.
No, agreed. And when you put it like that, you know, especially when you're saying, you know, it's not like I'm going to be betting king deuce of hearts, and even if I am, it's not really, like you say, a range we want to build around. So it doesn't really make sense to have that size. I think it comes down to, you know, especially with him being a very splashy and aggressive player, I think, I don't know if it's going to work so much on here, but I've noticed at the lower stakes on ACR, around 200 blitz and stuff like that, inducing can be really good. And I think I'm kind of in that mindset. But I don't think it's just going to, you know, I don't think this guy's just going to randomly just start spazzing. On a texture like that, in that kind of spot. So and actually versus a player like that, you probably just want to go for more value, because they're probably going to bluff like more than they should, but versus the big sizing, and probably get overly sticky as well. So even more reason. Agreed. Right, let me shut up and just play this on. Defend big blind. This goes check. I think having pot, and I can bet most of my jack X here for pot. I think Jack 10 plus makes sense to value bet when it goes check.
Nice. I'd use overbet just as a small side point, but I think that doing what you did was fine.
I was thinking overbet, but then I was thinking, are we like where's our value range start from for overbet?
Well, yeah, I mean, like it's. Well, the funny thing is, I have a feeling that your value range is going to be the same as mine. Like, you're not going to bet Jack Deuce there. Jack 10's kind of close. So you're probably going to go like King Jack-ish plus. Okay.
I do think, you know, if I would start value betting there from Jack 10, I think, maybe even Jack 8 suited. Do you think it's going to be, you know, from what I'm betting from my value, if I'm betting 10 Jack and you're not kind of thing, or if I'm betting Jack 8, you know, I'm betting pot, is that a viable strategy, do you think? Is it just as good, would you say, a similar EV, or do you think I'm losing EV by not overbetting and having a thinner range?
So there'll be a couple of things to that. First one is that I think you need to be a little bit more mindful of how your opponent is playing their range. They check back the flop, which therefore very, very strongly suggests to us that they're polarizing the flop. If you think that they're polarizing the flop and then they don't bet the flop, then that means they are going to have hands that are going to be dominating Jack 10 on the turn. So like they're going to be much more kind of like they're going to be checking back pretty strong on the flop. So if they're check backing strong on the flop, and then you are then starting to merge a combo like Jack 10, when they're probably checking back combos like Queen Jack, like a decent amount of the time, then you're hemorrhaging versus that portion of the range. So part of the reason you're overbetting the turn and not 2/3 or pot in the turn is because you're A, respecting the fact that they're checking back pretty strong, and then you're B, leveraging the portion of your range that is then like doing okay versus that check back range. So like you're kind of double fucking yourself by going a smaller sizing and then batting Jack 8 as you said, because they're just going to be having more plus EV calls from in position with like combos like Queen Jack, and then also you're just not leveraging that portion of your range that wants to go big. Okay.
Makes sense. Here I am going to 3-bet, I think. You know, if this was Ray's call or whatever, or Ray's, just this guy will be ISOing wider. This guy's limping all kinds of nonsense. Yeah, I think going maybe it's like Jack 9 suited, King 9 suited and shit. Weird one here. Like, I was expecting some leads. I wasn't expecting a lead of this size. I guess we are deeper. I think that this is just going to have to be a continue, and I don't think we really want to raise it. Although maybe there's more argument to raise this than a hand like Ace 8 suited. But I think a bit deeper, just always calling with this hand is going to make some sense. And then turn is about as bricky as it is versus another lead. I would imagine he's going to have big bet or check now. I think we have nothing to do but fold. But versus check, I think it'd be pretty interesting where we could potentially start bluffing this hand on turn and river. What do we think?
Call the flop versus 2/3 pot.
Really?
Yes, it's a donk, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think versus this sizing, you would not only do you get dominated on this board, well, not dominated, but like EV equity medium, like kind of fairly balanced, so they get to lead anyway. Their 2/3 pot is the most custom size.
Yeah,
it's so custom. And I've had a hand versus this player yesterday where they custom sized up a flop, and then I ended up getting stacked when they had a good flush draw. So when you see a custom size on this board and your hand is probably like not thrilled versus 1/3 pot and versus a player who we know is going for it in every single spot, I think we just want to fold.
Yeah, that's fair. Because I was thinking, oh, maybe he's going to... Because I do think, if anything, he's going to... Well, I don't know exactly how he plays, but he might be a little bit on the weaker side, just given that he might be going the bigger size to generate more fold equity. But then he is just going to blast on turns and rivers and stuff anyway, and we need to catch pretty perfect on the turn just to continue.
Precisely, yeah.
So, yeah, when you put it like that, it makes sense. I've called a 3-bet here, blind versus blind. These are the spots where, like, no, I'm not gonna say too much more. I'm going to call. We're obviously continuing. Maybe there's some argument for raising. Definitely think call versus obviously continuing versus such a tiny bet. And then turn, I would imagine probably folding versus like huge bets. Just have hands that are going to be doing better. And, you know, you see this a lot with the tiny bet and then the over bet on the river. I feel as though, I don't know, it's opponent dependent, but I don't see that much merit in calling this. If I can have 10 jack of spades, I can have it in clubs and 10-9 of clubs and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, turn, your hand has been forced, unfortunately. Versus 2/3 pot, you definitely have to call. And also, I would just say you probably want to 4-bet like half the time, 40% of the time, pre-flop.
Okay.
This is like a pretty good hand to be 4-betting, and one that I would want to do quite regularly. Flop, I wouldn't raise actually your hand, but I can see why you'd want to. That's the 10% pot. It's interesting. For what it's worth, you're going to get bluffed there versus this from this player way more than the average player, but you still can't really do anything versus 1.3x pot.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of thinking. That, you know, kind of intuitively when I'm in these spots, I'll find myself, you know, thinking, yeah, they're gonna just end up bluffing a lot here. But I used to call down a lot with unblockers, which I think was to an extent a mistake because I was forgetting about the hands that just have more EV that can improve more. And I'd end up calling down in spots where I couldn't really improve because I'm like, well, I unblock all the bluffs, but then they have a lot of outs to improve and I don't. So
yeah, no, that's. I mean, obviously in some situations that is good, but yeah, that one I don't think is, well, it probably is very good to call down versus that player, but you definitely don't have to.
What do you think about this one? Check back flop with no heart, check back turn, and then go for pot and river.
Again, on the river, I just don't use pot in this exact situation. I use 2/3 pot, but I don't think it's bad by any means.
Here, I am not sure what... I think queen 8 is always mixing. Here, I think I'd just 3-bet on a higher roll. Going for the call. I think we're always going to continue. I'm going to do a lot of small betting on this board texture. I think this hand is a fine one to start bluffing with. Can bet call versus check raise and not be super thrilled at it, but...
Seems good to me. I don't 3-bet queen 9 offsuit, but I'm sure in some sims it does. And then flop, I actually use half pot, but 1/3 is absolutely chilling as well. Well played.
What size do you use, sorry?
I use half.
Here, I've opened button. I'm going to check back on this flop. The only thing I sort of consider on this kind of flop when I am checking back, because I'm obviously going polar, I'm going big bet or check. I don't know if by only betting 3/4 and then checking if I'm sort of missing out in a way on value from if I'm right. Yeah, I guess we call once versus pot, but I'm not happy. I wonder if this is just indifferent. Probably indifferent versus overbet. I don't know. Call and then I hope he checks forever. I mean, this hand I'm just going to fold. It is my worst ace I'm ever going to have. I don't open ace deuce. Maybe I open ace three. So this is the worst top pair I ever have. I can have ace four. I can obviously have ace five, some king queen, stuff like that. See no reason to call this really.
Yeah, good fold on the river. This is again one of those situations where like player reads are so important and making notes on players are so important, because I think that like versus a number of players you can just fold the turn.
Agreed.
It seems egregious, but it's just not. If you're playing versus a thinking player in the big blind here, they know that you're polarizing the flop. So they just know you arrive with a bunch of like strong value combos. But if a good player knows that, then they're going to probably bluff appropriately, right? Whereas you're playing just like a nit or just like a standard reg, they're much more likely to go, I have this hand, I'm going to bet, rather than, oh, they're polarizing the flop, so they're checking back strong, so now I have to proceed with caution. Not only that, but they only use pot on the turn as well, as opposed to overbet. So what does that mean? So yeah, all those things coupled together tells a pretty different story depending on who you're playing.
Yeah.
Well, like we figured it out to be roughly 1.6 big blind per 100 in BBJ EV.
Okay.
And then you're paying 7.5 big blinds per 100 on this table. So if you're getting 7.5 big blinds, you're getting 1.6 back for BBJ. That puts you down to like 6 big blinds. You have to be beating this game for 6 big blinds to be breaking even. But obviously, you get a few big blinds right back. Let's say you get 3 big blinds right back. You have to be beating this for 3 big blinds to break even.
Okay. Here I am going to... This guy has very strange sizings, going 8 in position, 9 out. So against a smaller size, I'm just going to call here. Against a potential wreck as well, I'm just going to... I want to play more pots in position. Otherwise, I would mix. And honestly, I would probably mix between all three based on size and opponent with this hand. Because I'm pretty sure it does... Well, I think in a GTO sense, it always continues. In the form of call or 4-bet bluff, and I will base it on a number of things. First of all, opponent, if I'm just playing against, a very solid reg, I'll just mix between 4-bet and call. Versus quarter, I guess just call, and then I'm probably just going to try and show this hand down versus checks. Don't know, I'm going to be as low as king-9 suited here. Possible that I would start bluffing those, but I don't really see that much merit in bluffing too much king-x. Specifically targeting ace-x and stuff like that. I don't know how much I have on flop. So I'm just going to show this one down, I think, and hope we win. We do not.
Seems well played to me. Yeah. The only thing I was thinking is, like, do we think that, like, how much do we think someone is going to call down here if we just start bluffing our range? And I'm not saying I want to do it, but I'm just asking myself that question. Like, do I think... this random player, I'm just holding that ace-king offsuit hand in mind where they shoved versus the 10% on the river. So clearly that they are somebody who's willing to get pretty sticky. So I probably would, for that reason, never bluff this person with your particular hand. I mean, you're not meant to, but like if this is just like a tight recreational who telegraphs the strength of their hand, then you just print by bluffing 100% of your range, especially if they start folding low flushes.
Right, I have opened Queen 5 suited blind and blind against the same dude. I think it can probably go either way. I'm going to assume this guy's more of a rack. I would, on this type of board, probably having either half bet up or big bet. Yeah, and I'm going to just check the turn and call down on basically every run out. He just giving him some rope here, and then just close my eyes and call on river unless it's a queen and then we raise. Yeah, even on this one. Could have been a club I would have called down as well. I think Jack's bad. It gives him some showdown with Jack-X. So I actually expect when he does bet to have way more bluffs than him. So unless he does something absolutely egregious, I don't think I'm going to fold here versus basically anything. Yeah, versus that's the easiest call ever. Oh, okay.
Unlucky.
I'm on a really high roll there, so I'm going to 3-bet. With this type of hand, so, against regs that we know are solid, you said Casper's a very solid reg.
Yeah.
Would you say you should just be doing this at the frequency in which it is in a theoretical sense?
That's kind of my approach. So like my different color tags are like, yeah, if they're red, then it's going to be, I know that I need to be 3-betting / defending / 4-betting like fairly correctly. I'm not saying like I'm playing like to the T ranges that I'm like kind of like, yeah. And then versus orange tags, which is like the super aggressive ones, I'm then adjusting based on that. The dark blue, the light blue, and then I'm doing it based on that. But like generally, the red is the one that I'm playing like as close to theory as possible.
Yeah, mine is the same and the same color scheme. I think for basically all of the.
Oh right, okay, cool.
All of the labels.
So as we are closing out the session, I know I asked you this at the beginning of the first recording, but I'm going to ask you again. Like, what are your plans for 2025?
A lot of playing online, hopefully just trying to... I actually want to make a go of playing well on and off stream and just really trying to focus and not being... I think I was doing okay in terms of creating content and stuff. I was always doing that and always streaming, but I wasn't actually putting energy into playing well and improving, which I think is just a massive just lapse on my part. In terms of live, I think I'll play some live events and stuff. I want to schedule what I'm going to be playing, and then I do want to go to Vegas, create some content there, and play a load of the mixed games, because I really enjoy mixed games, and I feel as though I have an edge on quite a big portion of the pool, considering my lack of experience. And then literally try to win a bracelet, see if I can make a big enough schedule where I'm playing in games where I can win.
I'm not going to lie, if you have a Triton and a WSCP event, I have an extreme sense of jealousy.
I mean, like, you know how I say I'm the best to ever do it? Nobody can argue then.
That would be wild. Like, actually wild. It'd be so funny. All right, final hand then, guys, I guess. Good luck.
I was going to ask you once or twice.
You should have run it once, mate. I thought you were going to.
Do you know? I normally do, if it's under 40 bigs, I'll run once and then just don't scam me on the second run out.
Dealer hold.
Like, don't scam me.
No scam.
No scam.
The Dubsky.
Yeah, sweet.
We take those. Hit and run that 47 big blind pot.
Oh yeah.
Well, Mark,
baby.
thank you so much for coming on again. We're going to do a video over on Mark's channel at some point. We're not sure what we're going to do. In fact, if people want to let me know in the comments below what you might want to see over on Mark's channel, whether or not you're not really keen to do a live sweat, are you, Mark? You want to do something a bit different, but
I'd be up for it. I feel as though maybe there's some stuff that people can, I want to sort of rack your brain about just other things, that I've heard you talk about in videos, mental game and stuff, but I don't know exactly how to structure that into an entertaining video and a video that will actually get a good reach kind of thing.
Yeah, sure. Okay, well, we'll definitely give it a bit more thought. But yeah, a video will come out on your channel at some point in the not so distant future. We'll make that happen.
Sweet.
All right, mate. Well, thanks a lot for coming on. And guys, we will see you next time. That's going to do it for the second part of the live sweat with Weasel. If you do like this type of content and there is somebody else you would like to see on the channel doing something similar or another idea entirely, definitely do let me know in the comments below. But until next time, take care and I will see you at the tables.